Hard Things Podcast, Episode 4. This is your host, Blaine Burgess. I am proud to be coming to you live from Austin, Texas. It's a place that I've called home for almost 3 years. I was doing some traveling the last 6 months, but it feels good to be back. The first 3 episodes I recorded and episode 6 were all recorded in Columbus, Ohio. That is my hometown. Austin, Texas, in a way, is a lot like Columbus. In Columbus, you have Ohio State University, really is the kind of the core of the city, really the state for that matter, and UT here in Austin is the same. Very, very similar setup in terms of capital cities here. So I felt at home in Austin more than maybe other places. So again, like I said, it's good to be back. I got some good friends here who I am happy to visit. If you're listening and you know it's you, what's up? And I just went to the legendary Egos bar on South Congress, and it's known to be a karaoke bar. So I sang the song Santa Monica by Everclear, and it was electric. I had a great time. Some other electric songs were being sung. Today, really this week's been great. I recorded episode 7 with Tim Rawlings a couple days ago, and that's going to be electric when it comes out. I did put an offer up to some folks on the internet just through Instagram stories. If you want to hear episode 7 with Tim Rawlings early, up to 3 weeks early, it's coming out 3 weeks from today. Actually, it's April 9th currently. So if you want that episode early, all you have to do is Venmo me $6. $3 goes to me and my podcast, and $3 goes to Coach Tim Rawlings. He is my coach for Olympic weightlifting. Overall, great guy. When the episode comes out, I think you get a really good snapshot of who he is, what he's all about, and I think it's a great example of a kind of positive male role model that I think a lot of people can use right now, and I endeavor to be the same. Really, as a result of his and a few others' influence. So shout out to Tim for that episode. I'm still pumped on it, and really trying to bring that energy into today's episode, which is episode 4, as I said before. Every episode so far has kind of had a number theme. We had 765, and now episode 4 happens to be where it lines up with the number that I'm focusing on today. There's a lot of things that you could talk about when it comes to the number 4. Right now, actually, it's funny. March Madness is ending, and the Final Four is over. Obviously, something that's really popular. And I guess when I really dig deep and think about what I want to talk about at the beginning of this season, I happened upon the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I know he's not Brazilian. That's not time to pronounce R's like H's, but really, that book changed my life in a lot of ways. I'm someone as a young man had some, interactions with folks that really left a sour taste in my mouth through high school and some in college, and it's really kind of tough to grow up when the world's kind of so savage. And one thing that helped me kind of let go of my anger a little bit was this book. Really, overall, it gives you a good framework on how to understand what's happening to you in life. And it's a little bit of tough love, I think, in a way, too. Kind of calls out how, insignificant we might be, but also how important it is to be ourselves and to, kind of lean in as well. Both are kind of true at the same time. And that's the sign of an intelligent mind, is to be able to hold two ideas that are kind of opposing at once. And that really ultimately is life. There's dichotomies everywhere. If you look for them and understand them, you're going to be happier. I can tell you, as someone who really burnt the candle at both ends to try and be quote unquote successful in our present society, I achieved a level of success and realized that none of it mattered. and that really some of this wisdom and the other wisdom I've talked about so far really is ultimately what matters, because that's there for you when you're at rock bottom or at your highest high in life. And so without any further ado, I'll stop rambling. I'm just going to get into the 4 agreements and some of my thoughts about it. One thing I want to do too is maybe even expand on these agreements. So I'll tell you Don Miguel's version, and I'll tell you my thoughts on it, and maybe where I would add or alter in a way, just things based on my opinion and things I've read that are kind of parallel to the wisdom in this book. I also highly recommend you check out this book whenever you can, either buy it or, however you do books, audiobooks, whatever it may be. Can't recommend it enough. I could go into the background of Don Miguel Ruiz, but I think it's worth it for you to look into it yourself. So, look him up and learn a little bit about Latin American culture. But anyways, the first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. Words are really important, really powerful. If you think just on a base physical level of what words are, these are vibrations that we create with our vocal cords and our throat. And it's how we convey information. If you really think about like what it took to develop language in the way that we have it now, and the fact that the world has all of these different languages that ultimately can mean the same thing, could be translated across cultures, it's honestly astonishing. A couple of days ago, we just had this eclipse. I was lucky enough to be in the path of the eclipse in Dallas with some other friends of mine. And when you think about everything it takes for our solar system to maintain its equilibrium, and then everything it would take for life to develop, and then beyond that, everything it would take for us to develop language. Like, to me, anytime I've ever been depressed in my life, like, what am I doing? If you're not absolutely in awe of the magnitude of what's happening in life, then you're not paying attention, for one, and maybe you are a little bit married to your pain. I guess that would be my feedback there, because as someone who has felt deep pain and let it go, just thinking of what it took for us to get to this point is fantastic. It's amazing. So bringing it back to being impeccable with your word. Words are powerful. I mean, again, on a base level, they're vibrations that we share with others to convey meaning. I think sometimes words kind of fall short of the ability to describe emotions and feelings that we might have. There is like an innate wisdom in the mind and the heart and the body, I think, that is very hard to translate. Sitting with yourself and meditating is one way to kind of tap into it, but I don't know. I think I could meditate my whole life and still wouldn't be able to translate the way I feel about certain people in my life, or the way I feel about certain situations. So what we can convey, I mean, it only makes sense to be impeccable with your word. And impeccable meaning, as accurate, and I think as, I think of like clean, like you do not want to dirty your soul with anything that you say. I think a lot of people fall into maybe the rumor mill or the gossip train, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of times that's motivated by less than ideal motives. And I really invite you just to step back and think about, when something negative is coming to mind and it's going to come out of your mouth. Like, everyone has negative thoughts. I think we all have thoughts that we either do share or do not share with others. And it's important to see and recognize those thoughts. This is where meditation comes in handy, is just to notice them and let them pass. And don't let them out of you, because that puts that literal vibration of those words into the air. I think when we're maybe in a verbal fight with someone, the heat of the moment, I think it's really easy to let words fly that you really ultimately don't mean. There is a quote, I'm not sure who to attribute it to, but it goes kind of like, most love is lost when you say things you don't mean and when you mean something that you can't figure out how to say. And sometimes just sitting and being with someone and not saying anything is enough. And sometimes saying, hey, this is how I think I feel, but I'm not sure how to really say it. I think this is how it is, but does that make sense? And kind of posing it almost as a question. Because I think a dialogue and really a feeling can go a long way too. So the way I would expand be impeccable with your word is to extend that to all of your actions, your body language, how you move in the world, how you treat a stranger. Words are just one way that we communicate, but there's so many other ways. And one thing I thought of recently, someone I know was talking about leaving someone on red. So like turning on your iMessage read receipts and kind of using that as a tool to make someone feel bad. Like they texted you and you left them on, like you read it and you didn't reply. And to me, I think an equally powerful message is leaving someone on delivered, not turning your read receipts on for that specific person. That's quite manipulative. But even better than leaving someone on delivered would be potentially responding with kindness and just saying, hey, what you said is something that I don't agree with, or I think the motive behind it is suspect. I appreciate you for who you are, but this relationship is no longer aligned with me, or something to that effect. Just something that's honest and kind. It might be a little bit of a harsh truth or tough love, but that oftentimes, at least in my life, tends to work out very well. It may not be the outcome that I want, but at the end of the day, that person will remember me for having been human in a moment when I could have been something else. So that would be my addition, is extending impeccability to everything. And maybe especially to people who don't technically deserve it, like strangers or people that, other people treat with, disregard, like maybe someone who's been canceled and done something terrible, objectively terrible, is something that they should be held accountable for, but maybe not by ruining their livelihood completely. I think some level of shame and guilt is necessary, but also at the end of the day, people are human and mistakes are going to happen. They're pretty much inevitable. As a human being myself who has made mistakes based on all kinds of reasons, either intentional or unintentional, I can say that I feel that that's true, and I hope that you understand that as well. So with that said, moving into agreement number 2, do not take anything personally. And kind of how I ended that first agreement, it makes sense to roll right into the second one. I think the biggest lesson I've learned, especially in the last 6 months, is it's not about you. Most of what people do has nothing to do with you at all. Where you might think that they are thinking about you, they're oftentimes not. Or if they are, they're not thinking about you, conceptualizing you and who you are in the way that you conceptualize yourself. Like this happens especially in romantic relationships where someone might be idealizing you as a, certain kind of perfect lover in a way. And in reality, we're all flawed. So they kind of have the rose-colored glasses on, and through the course of a relationship, you're going to let them down, and they may act in a specific way as a response to that. It may be someone that can't communicate through words very well. They may not be able to be impeccable with their word or any form of communication. They're not impeccable because they are incapable. And in situations like that, it's especially important to not take anything personally, because oftentimes it's someone's kind of chaotic subconscious and subconscious mind that is really interacting with you. And all you can do is invite them to bring these things into the conscious mind so that they can be talked about intelligently, and the feelings can be felt, and a combination of that may lead to something better. But yeah, at a certain point, it isn't about you, and realizing that gives you a kind of freedom. Realizing that it's not some attribute that you either have or don't have that's the reason for someone causing us pain or causing themselves pain or anywhere in between. So one thing I always think about when it's relating to this is it's a philosophical term called Hanlon's razor. If you know anything about philosophy, razor is just kind of a simple phrase that you can use to challenge a thought or a question or really anything. So Hanlon's razor is: never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. And I'll be honest, I don't really like the word stupidity because someone's lacking maybe information or some type of intellectual aptitude doesn't necessarily mean that stupid is just not a good thing. Everyone is smart in some form or fashion. If not book smart, maybe street smart, or vice versa. But I do like the word incompetence. Incompetence, like I said, everyone's good at something. I think we're born with different abilities. I'm someone that I haven't always been great at public speaking, but here I am doing a podcast, and I've done stand-up comedy, and tonight I did, karaoke. I sang, a full Everclear song, and that's not something I would have done 10 years ago. None of that is something I would do 10 years ago, but I've kind of developed myself into it and developed a little bit of competence, and definitely on my way to more. So I think incompetence is a good way to say it. Another way I would say it is ignorance. And some people think ignorance is maybe an insult. I don't think so. I think it's just, people don't know what they don't know. And all we can do is invite them to maybe, seek the truth or learn a truth that maybe we've learned the hard way, so they don't have to do it the hard way. And again, like in that invitation is the ability for them to make a choice, but it's important that they make the choice. So I think I like that definition maybe a little bit better. And more often than not, I don't think people are inherently evil, but they do evil things as a result of hard feelings, or they're just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And when you back, an animal into a corner, it's going to fight, fight or flight, and you can't leave, you're going to fight. And from what I've seen from people, like oftentimes they feel a lot of guilt and shame after they do something out of a strenuous situation, being backed into a corner, and they often realize the error of their ways, but maybe they never apologize because they never get the opportunity or the grace from somebody to say, like, hey, I understand the position you might have been in. And again, like inviting them to, you know, basically own up to, like, yeah, I was backed into a corner and I did make a bad decision and I'm sorry, kind of inviting an apology if it's there, not coercing one, but more so giving that space to, again, like, we already made one bad decision, let's not make another. That's a big concept for me too, is not linking together poor decisions. If you make one poor decision, you can always stop, pause, make sure the next one is a better one. It may not be the right one, but at least better. So again, I'll review. So we have be impeccable with your word. Do not take anything personally. The third one kind of is along the same vein. Do not make assumptions. I think this goes along with the other two in that, like, don't assume that your word isn't important. I think it's easy to be, to kind of feel anonymous in our world. There's so many people out there. But, I think even the smallest actions, especially positive ones, can make a big difference. Being kind to a stranger, someone that you have power over or someone that is powerless, that can really be helpful. And like, do not take anything personally. Assuming that the situation is about you is a very egoic thing to do. And there's all kinds of assumptions we can make, assuming people's motives. I mean, the human brain is so complex, and there's so many layers to it. There's so many competing motivations. There's these like base survival instincts, and there's egoic instincts that want to help a person thrive, and then there's like higher intentions even above that, which drive people to do very, very kind and like human things. So it's important not to make assumptions of like where an action is coming from, and you can assume that both directions. You can assume someone's a really good person, and then you see them do something out of character. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person all of a sudden. It just means that they may have been backed into a corner in some form or fashion. And the opposite is also true. Someone evil may feel that they, need to do something as a result of some type of situation they encountered before. Deep down, they're really a good person, but they're doing some really evil things on the surface. And I think all of that can be true at once. Again, it's so complex. So not making assumptions helps us become curious. I think that's the antidote to that, is to become curious. And especially for me, asking questions can be a little bit uncomfortable, especially when you sense the other person doesn't really want to go there. But if you really care about the best outcome, like what's best for everyone involved in this situation, you do need to ask the hard questions. And the hard questions that may bring up answers that you don't want to hear or lead to actions that you don't necessarily want to take. I know for me, I've had situations where I've been fearful of an answer to a question that I know I should ask. And by not asking it, you're just delaying the inevitable. It's ultimately whatever's going to happen is likely already going to happen. If a situation, example is like a job that you have where, you kind of I've had a few situations where I've been hired for what was ultimately an altruistic motive, like seemingly on the surface. But then you really join the team and you get into the work and you realize that it's coming from a place that maybe is not so like upstanding, not necessarily coming from a good place, more of a place of fear or otherwise, or kind of an idealistic thing, like, oh, it'd be really nice if we could get this done, but it's not realistic in terms of the market and kind of the savage ways of economics in the world. And I've been in situations where I've gotten to a team, I've started to do the work, and I realized, oh man, this is a fool's errand that I'm on. These people are maybe missing certain pieces of information, and then you kind of become the mouthpiece of this information. And I think it's easy to assume that someone's not ready to hear these things and maybe not say them and kind of collect a paycheck and keep going. And in almost every case where this has happened to me, I've been like either let go or kind of like told to resign or whatever it may be. And it all started in a job interview where I felt a little tinge of, oh, is that, I kind of thought to myself, like, I guess I can try. But I kind of, from the beginning, had a feeling like, man, this probably isn't going to work. But again, the survival instincts kicked in, and we need to make money. We want to be successful. So maybe some of my egoic concerns stepped in and had me compromise my ultimate, intuition. And ultimately, all it did was delay the inevitable, which is being fired or having to move on. So at the end of the day, we're going to lose everything. Someday. So trying to hold on to these things when they maybe aren't for us is tough. So not making assumptions and asking the hard questions can help you avoid additional suffering by just dealing with it up front. If you get it all out there up front, it's going to point you on a different path. It may be a little tougher. You may not make as much money right away, but ultimately in the end, it should pay off for you if you're consistently making better decisions using some of this wisdom and some of the other wisdom that's out there. All right, so we're getting pretty deep in the episode. I want to get to the fourth agreement, and that is always do your best. This one is a really convoluted one and probably the best example of holding two ideas as true at the same time. Always do your best, and the caveat is your best changes from day to day. I think one of the hardest things to do as a human being is to hold yourself accountable and responsible for your life. Always do your best gives you the freedom to know that not every day is going to be an 100% best day ever effort. And I think as you learn different, information about a situation you're in, whether it's a job, a relationship, you tend to kind of posture yourself in certain ways. If a job isn't for you and you kind of have to run on survival mode just to collect a paycheck and try to survive while you figure out your next move, this is something that's super common. I hear it from friends and I've seen it a lot. Your best is going to not be very good if you're not, kind of highly motivated to succeed in this position. You're going to be more motivated to update your resume and go out on the job hunt. And that's going to take some of your time and attention. Again, opportunity cost is one of my favorite things to think about. So if you're not putting in enough effort at work, then you are out looking for a job, and it's going to make your work performance suffer. But in the end, for you, you got to take care of number one. And sometimes you get pushed into survival mode. You really don't have another choice. And if you feel like you don't have another choice, I can tell you your intuition's probably right. So you have to take massive action in the way of bettering yourself through finding new people to do business with and doing your best to make sure that the next step is something closer to your ultimate goal or your ultimate kind of life's work, so to speak. And I'll tell you, as someone who's bounced around a lot of different jobs, a lot of different people, cities, states, you name it. Each stop on my journey definitely led me to realize what my passion is. My passion is studying the nervous system in the body and how the brain interacts with the body through the spine, for athletic purposes, for longevity purposes, all that. And that led me to go to chiropractic school. So, always doing my best. My best was never, 100% every day. There were days where I did it well, and there were times when I was in flow state for weeks at a time in a job that I absolutely loved, and only to have that promptly ripped away when some type of thing changed. Maybe some management moved on and we got new management, and the company takes a drastic turn in direction and you can feel it, and the next thing you know, it's not the same job anymore. Unfortunately, the opposite usually isn't true, where a bad job turns into a good job. Oftentimes, the magic that we find is fleeting when it comes to work. But that's why it's important to always maintain those skills of being flexible, always doing your best, and always seeking the best for you. So I think that's what I would add, is always seeking the best for yourself. Because again, you have to look out for number one, kind of put on your oxygen mask before you can help others. So by seeking the best for yourself, you are improving your ability to help others. And ultimately, what human beings do best is form communities and share what we have. And when we're operating at our best, I think that's community is where, we reside when we're at our best. Whenever we're divided, that kind of comes from another place. So always do your best. Best changes from day to day. That's not an excuse to just let yourself slack off. Like, you need to be your best self. And the best is the active word here. But if you're in a tough situation and you got to go survival mode just to get to the next thing, the next level, maybe take a step back to take two forward, let it rip. If that's your intuition, I think it's powerful, and you should follow it. Kind of giving yourself permission to back off a little bit. Okay, so we're 33 minutes in, but I did have a little surprise here at the end. So it turns out Don Miguel wrote another book called The Fifth Agreement. So I know this is episode 4, and it's a 4 theme, but I am going to give a bonus 5th agreement. And this is one that I absolutely love. I'm glad that he wrote this additional book, because the agreement is to be skeptical but learn to listen. I think he starts his first book with be impeccable with your word. And one thing that comes to mind is that we were born with 2 ears and 1 mouth. So be impeccable with your word, but beyond that, be impeccable with your discernment, your listening. Being skeptical is important because you want to test assumptions. Again, don't make assumptions, and if you have those thoughts, you have to test them rigorously so that you can let them go and ask appropriate questions. And if you really listen to someone, and oftentimes listening includes watching their actions. Actions definitely speak louder than words. So again, be impeccable with your word, be impeccable with your actions. Anytime that I really go out of my way for someone I care about and they feel the same way, I see it reciprocated 100% of the time. And you'll find out real quick if somebody has your back. And I think really in this life, there's all forms of love, but that love where someone just has your back is the most important to me. That's the one that I've come to really enjoy the most. And I get that from family and my closest friends. And when you're around to notice it, again, learning to listen, when you notice when someone's really got your back, I don't think there's anything more satisfying in the entire world. And to add on top of that, I think everyone holds some measure of truth. In their lives, they've gone through hard things where they've learned a lesson that is just abundantly true. And sometimes it might not be the message we want to hear, but it is the truth. And you can sit there and test their truth in your life if you want, but by doing so might bring yourself, immense pain. This is something I've learned to a great degree, having had so many, good coaches in athletics growing up, good teachers that, I think of one, a baseball coach that I had. He told me, very early on, like, hey, girls are like lovely, lovely creatures, but love is the death of duty. And as a man, like, as you're growing up, you need to put duty first, become the man you're going to become, and, then you're going to attract the person that you want to be with. And it's really easy to kind of seek that early validation, and, everyone's going out and partying, and if you can't beat them, join them. And some of the most successful people I know living today that, kind of grew up around the same time as me were people who sacrificed so much early on that it almost doesn't make sense. In a time when they're supposed to be selfish, they really were unselfish. And now, at the age, I'm 33, and so these folks are about the same age. They have immense resources and joy just based on who they are and who they've become and what they can give the people they care about. And like, looking back, like, I would trade anything for that. And that realization led me again to follow my passion of, learning about the nervous system and how to improve athletic performance and improve longevity and have the best quality of life. And these are things that I get excited about when I read, when I'm doing schoolwork for chiropractic school. I mean, I get very excited. And, if I hadn't had that example of seeing someone sacrifice so much to have all this ability to really live life, I just realized that, if it takes me 3 years to get through chiropractic school, that, it's 3 years for the next 30 of meaning. And to me, that is an easy trade-off. And at the end of that, I'll be 66 years old. And I just have this abundant feeling that it's all going to pay off. And I think whatever I was searching for before ultimately just wasn't, it can't even compare to, what I could gain. So it was hard for me to see that before this moment. You kind of have to live some life and get some experience to really be able to see that clearly. So it's amazing to me that, some of the folks that I'm speaking about were able to do that at such an early age. And if I could go back, and just tell my younger self, like, hey, buckle up. It's going to be a little bit of a rough ride, but eventually you're going to get there. I don't know that I would necessarily change anything because I really enjoy what I'm doing right now. And I think I needed all the information I collected on this journey to get to this point. So again, be skeptical, but learn to listen. And listening, again, is not just words, body language, intuition. And you just never know where you're going to find a little nugget of truth. And once you find a truth that you really have tested in life, through the trials of life, and just kind of know it intuitively to be true, there's nothing better to me. And, aside from being able to share that with someone and have them receive it and apply it, and you can see them, benefit from it, and they get to the point where they thank you. And that's something people were generous enough to share with me that now, in hindsight, I have the benefit of understanding. So those 5 agreements, the 4 from the original book and the bonus one, to be skeptical, again, they really changed my life. They were one of the catalysts that led me to this podcast and my business, Infinite Strength. And speaking of Infinite Strength, so the website is live, infinite-strength.com. There are 2 kind of forms of coaching that I want to do. One's kind of a shorter 21-day accountability for really anything when it comes to lifestyle or human performance. It could be kind of a physical fitness thing, could be mental, emotional, whatever it is. I have frameworks for most things that have to do with being human. So there's a 21-day and a 90-day that I want to offer people depending on how deep and intense you want to go. But if there's a goal that you have that's just been hanging over your head for so long, for me, that was weight loss. I had always carried around extra weight ever since high school, and I've been anywhere from 270 pounds to 320 pounds. Now, as I sit here, I'm about 250. So, honestly, genuinely, continuing to lose weight as I kind of learn more about my body and learn more how to relax my nervous system. The weight kind of naturally comes off. I'm not as hungry. I'm not stressed. I just eat what I need to eat, especially prioritizing protein, and it's been great. So as a result of that, I have this framework for doing hard things, and that's ultimately what the podcast is about. And that's what I want to coach people on. So yeah, infinite-strength.com, that's there. What's also there is a pre-order for a book that I want to write. I actually have 2 weeks off of school after I have finals next week. And in those 2 weeks, I want to get a full manuscript together, kind of that first draft that can be edited and then released ultimately sometime July 2024, probably towards the end. But that's kind of a lofty goal, but this book actually has written itself inside my brain. It just needs to be on paper. So that's going to be self-published ebook. I have some good friends that are used to doing this kind of thing, and it's exciting. I mean, I want to start to get some of my ideas on paper, and maybe for people who can't afford the coaching, you can afford the book, and the book will kind of catalyze whatever reaction that you're trying to get out of yourself. So that's there on infinite-strength.com as well. And any way you want to support, you support the podcast by ultimately checking out my website, considering purchasing coaching or a pre-order for the book. There is also a pre-order for all 3 books. I have a trilogy planned for these books, and I think it's going to be a trilogy of books that can provide a full framework for really any type of transformation you're trying to make. It could be like a career one, it could be financial, it could be finding love, whatever it is. I think, again, the framework is really applicable to most things that have to do with being human. So I'm excited to work with folks and kind of put this stuff out there. Again, if you don't have the resources even to do like a pre-order for the book, which is going to be $33 or $99 for the trilogy, this podcast is really meant for you then. This free resource, no ads ever. I want this information to get to you, into your brain, so that you can change your life. I've seen it happen so far, just in folks that I've connected with and kind of shared ideas, whatever they're struggling with. Again, one moment of kindness to a stranger can really go a long way. I recently, coming to Austin, I reconnected with a homeless man that I'd met, and he told me a couple days ago that he got his first apartment. He asked me to, kind of send him good vibes for an apartment that he applied for, and now he's moving out of the shelter, the homeless shelter that he was in, and he's in his own apartment. And he's as an Army vet, he's a good guy, good soul. Had some trouble, and now he has a job and an apartment. And just seeing him, I really honestly just shared a couple of ideas and thoughts through Instagram and text message, and I think literally just one kind thing you can say to someone, you never know what that's going to do, whether it's just complimenting someone's outfit or something, attribute about them. If you think something's cool, you like someone's pants, whatever, like don't think it's weird. Just say, hey, I like your pants, and don't expect anything in return. Just walk away. If they want to start a conversation with you, that's up to you if you want to, stick around. But I think people ultimately do enjoy that, and it's kind of a lost art of a compliment and run. So typically I keep these episodes to 30 minutes. I don't want to ramble anymore, but I do believe everything that I just said. And again, any support that you can provide is very welcome. As I'm in chiropractic school, I do want to do this as much as I can, and kind of maintain this. And if I'm able to provide for myself through this podcast and other means, and help people at the same time, I would love to do so. So thanks again for listening and considering that. And once again, if you want episode 7 a little bit early with one of my best friends, Tim Rawlings, you can Venmo me at Blaine-Burgess. If you need the spelling, it's on the title of these episodes, wherever you're listening. I should be, at least. And the $3 will go to Tim, and $3 will go to the podcast. And again, appreciate the support. If you want to hear it early, like I said, Tim absolutely knocked it out of the park. And his son Vinny makes an appearance in the audio. Cute kid. You get some baby laughter. I think we all love that. So once again, thank you for considering. I'm going to stop rambling now. And I'm not going to lie, I had the perfect ending to these podcasts. And I'm blanking on how I wanted to get out of it today. So I think what I'll end on is reiterating the fact that it's not about you. It's really easy to be self-centered, especially when it comes to other people's actions. And if there's one thing I could put on a billboard, kind of like the classic Tim Ferriss question, I would say it's not about you. People are acting the way they do for all kinds of reasons, and the fact that it's about you is like the least likely one. So go forth with that knowledge and be kind to people, and I will see you all for episode 5. A little preview of episode 5 is going to be the fact that we love trilogies. So again, I'm writing a book trilogy, but there's a lot of things, including like the movie The Matrix. Star Wars is a trilogy of trilogies. I'm big on the hero's journey, so those are one thing. But the preview is I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and a huge Ohio State Buckeye fan. And there are 3 Michigan men who we are taught to hate from a young age that I learned significant lessons from. So 3 Michigan men, and that's going to be my trilogy of information for that episode. So if you like the way that sounds, check it out next week. I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks, and catch you next time.